Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Yona of the Dawn, episode 2. And I'm going to start off with a couple things real quick before we begin. First off, you may notice this is only one episode. It's episode 2, not 2 and 3, not 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. Well, for a series that's normal length like this, it would probably just be 2 at max. But point is, this is just 2, and there's two main reasons for that. One, time. I woke up really late today. As you may have noticed, there was no live stream and all. It's because I woke up really late, and I don't know why it happened. Not going to get into all that, but point is, yeah. So there's a lot I've had to do, a lot that I've had to get squared away and stuff. I believe it or not, I do stuff outside of reacting and all of that. But yeah, it's just I don't really have as much time. It's currently about 5:25. It's Friday, so my dad, I don't know exactly when he's gonna get home, and it's pretty much at this point I have until he gets home to be able to record for today. Plus again, I do have to get to other stuff too still. So yeah. While it would be possible to do 2, I just want to I want to focus on 1 at the moment, and that's also for the second reason. As I mentioned, there are 2 reasons for this. The second reason is because of my thoughts on the first episode, to be honest. If I'm just going to be honest, I'm going to say that, like, just straight out. As you guys know, I really had some issues with the first episode. It wasn't, like, terrible or anything, but there was a few things that really bothered me. The transitioning between scenes, such, for example, the pacing of it felt wrong, especially at the end there, with that one thing I brought up, which I'll talk about in further detail in a moment here. And of course, the incest thing were the big ones. Some of the voice acting also sounded really off to me. Especially some of the voice actors, though I love them, really didn't feel like they fit the characters they were assigned to. Maybe that's just me, though. But the incest thing really threw me off, and some of you guys were saying in the comments, oh, that was normal for that time period and stuff, for the time period this takes place in. It wasn't as big of a deal back then, and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. I understand very much that in olden days like that, that kind of stuff wasn't as looked down upon. The problem is, I live in this day and age. I live in 2018. And in 2018, that is wrong. It is very wrong. And I believe I mentioned it in my afterthoughts and all on the first episode. I really do not like incest. Really do not like incest. Like, it's not even, like, I will not hide that. I despise it. So, because of that, the idea of this bothers the hell out of me. Now, obviously, it was only for 1 episode because her cousin ended up turning evil, or maybe was evil the entire time, or I don't even know at this point. Most likely was evil the entire time, but I don't know exactly how long, because apparently he was cool, like, from their childhood and stuff, too. I don't know. We'll figure that out, but still, the fact that they went into that, and the anime, a lot of anime seem to go into that as well. It's just like, I get it, you're trying to have an anime take place in this time period, but you don't have to have that. You really don't. Just because that was a thing back then doesn't mean it was always a thing. Doesn't mean it was the only thing. You could have had her fall in love with a guard or something. It just felt wrong to me. And it really hurt my enjoyment of the episode, because a lot of the episode focused on that. But then there was the pacing thing I mentioned before at the end. The fact that the guard, I think his name is Hawk or something like that, Hawk or Hack or something, I don't know, something like that. The fact is, like, everything's fine and dandy. He's, like, just hanging out with the other guard dude, and they're, like, chatting and drinking and whatnot. And then, like, not even a minute worth of time later, we see that she's being attacked by these guards who are apparently on her cousin's side. All of a sudden, Hack is just there. He's just there protecting her. There's no proper transition for his character onto why he got from one to the other place. And some of you were saying in the comments, once again, things like, oh, but it showed earlier that he was suspicious that it was so quiet or whatnot. It's like, yes, but that doesn't actually matter. Like, that was earlier. At the moment beforehand, he was talking to this other dude. His mind was distracted. And it didn't show how he went from talking to this other dude to all of a sudden being just right there in the course of, like, what, 30 seconds of screen time, of course. Not like in, like, 30 seconds in world time, in canon time. You know what I mean. There was no proper transition, and it was just poorly edited because of that. Like, no matter what you say, no matter... And some of you were saying, oh, it's going to explain it in the next episode or whatnot. One, don't tell me that stuff. That counts as a spoiler in my eyes. I've told you... I tell you guys before and stuff, do not tell me if something is going to be explained in the future, or if something that I have a problem with or whatnot is going to be fixed in a future episode. Do not tell me that, please. Do not... Please, just don't. I count that as a spoiler, and I want to remain spoiler-free. That being said, even with that, that's not an excuse. That doesn't fix the problem. The problem was still that it was poorly paced and handled in that first episode. If it's explained in the second episode, that doesn't fix it. That doesn't change the fact that it was poorly handled. In fact, I feel that actually makes it worse. Because it's like, that could have very easily been placed in the first episode. Just that, again, as I mentioned in my afterthoughts on the first episode, one small tiny thing. Like, maybe him hearing a noise and turning his head. That's all that was needed. A split second of animation to be added in. And they didn't do that. Like, maybe 2 seconds max. So they can't even use the entire time constraint argument. There is no argument that would work to make that right. And like I said before, some of the voices just sounded really weird. Like Hack's voice, he's voiced by, his name has been escaping me lately, and that's weird because usually I always remember his name. He's one of the, like, big name voice actors for English dubs. Chris Sabat. Yeah. Chris Sabat, like, he's an amazing VA, and he did, like, the best with what he had. The character does not fit his voice at all. That'd be like Chris Sabat voicing Edward Elric from Full Metal Alchemist. It would not fit, and not just because Vic Mignogna does an amazing job as Ed. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the appearance. It doesn't fit, like, what we know of the character. Chris Sabat's amazing, but, like, with any voice actor, you have to play a role that works for, like, in terms of everything. Not just like, oh, you're a good voice actor, play this role. No. No, you can't just do that. That doesn't work. They have to fit the character. They have to fit their appearance, too. I actually, like, strongly believe that. With voice acting, a voice actor has to... Their voice, then the voice they're doing for the character has to fit the appearance of the character. Otherwise, it makes no sense. It does not work. Like, you're not going to have... Unless that's the point. Unless you're trying to do that on purpose for subversion of expectation, it's not going to work. Like, I've seen, like, in a couple things, like having a big muscular guy have, like, this cute, squeaky voice, and it works for subversion of expectations, but that's intentional. But, like, if you give this, like, smaller-looking dude this, like, almost just generically cute guy, giving him a voice like Chris Sabat's, it does not fit. like I said, it'd be like Chris Sabat voicing Edward Elric. It would not make sense. It just does not work. And some of the other voices kind of felt like that too. Like Yona's father, his voice did not fit him at all. Yona's voice herself, voiced by Monica Rial, I don't think works that well. And again, I love Monica Rial. She's one of my favorite voice actors for English dubbed anime. I love her, and again, just like with Chris Sabat, she's giving it the best she can. And in essence, her voice acting here isn't bad. It's just that it doesn't fit the character. The character does not look or act like she should have that kind of voice. I'm sorry. Caitlin Glass would have been a much better choice here. Honestly, that would have just worked so much better. Maybe that's just me, but I take a big interest in voice acting and how it fits with characters, which is why there's certain anime I think are better in the dub, because the Japanese voices don't fit their characters. Pretty much all of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, for example. Pretty much all of Dragon Ball Z, for example. The voices don't fit the characters, and it's just like the English voices do. And that's the case sometimes. Not all original subbed versions are better. Sub is not inherently better than dub. I'm sorry, but it's not. But moving on, so all of that, all of those issues I did have with the first episode is another reason why I'm kind of hesitant on continuing the series, and I think I kind of mentioned that in my afterthoughts last time. I'm a little hesitant. I'm going to continue watching because it definitely has potential for greatness, and I definitely see certain aspects of why someone might like this so far, but to be honest, I'm not seeing like completely on how I would like it yet. Because no matter what other people think of it, that doesn't matter to me. My thoughts on a lot of anime are different from a lot of other people's thoughts. I can't stand Code Geass, for example. I think it's a bad show. I think Evangelion is bad. Yet those are two of the most beloved anime. I don't care. I love Akame ga Kill. Yet that's a almost universally hated anime. I don't care, because it's my opinions, my experience with the show. I actually have a lot of issues with Gurren Lagann. I hate Kamina as a character. I despise his character. Yet he's the most popular character in the show. And people really don't see him as being an issue at all for the show. It's different viewpoints, different perspectives, and it's going to remain that way. If I don't end up liking Yona of the Dawn, I don't end up liking Yona of the Dawn. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to, as I've said before, I won't continue watching a show if I don't have an interest in continuing it. And if I'm just not liking it. But again, that was one episode, and I honestly do believe there is potential with this show. So we're going to watch episode 2 today, but I think we are on the kind of proving ground stage, you could say. It's at that point where it has to prove itself to me. Because there was just too many issues I had with the first episode. And yes, one of those issues could be possibly solved by switching to the original Japanese voicing. But at this point, it's like, that would only be one issue, and honestly, that's probably the least big issue I did have with the first episode. The pacing stuff, and it wasn't just that one part at the end, by the way. The pacing and editing and transitioning between scenes just seemed weird the entire episode. But that and the other stuff mentioned that I had issue with episode 1, that stuff definitely takes it. Plus, again, I just didn't really enjoy it as much as I hoped to. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to judge it with episode 2 here. And here's the thing. If Yona of the Dawn, if I do end up dropping it after this episode, that's just how it's going. We will replace it with a poll for the next anime series, which means you guys will get to vote on what I react to next. And I do apologize ahead of time. If that does happen, I apologize to Matthew Vasquez, who suggested this to me. But as I say with anything, even if a series is suggested to me, that doesn't mean I'm going to like it. That doesn't mean it's going to be something I want to continue watching. Any show, I'm not one of those reactors who will just continue watching a show if I'm not enjoying it. If I don't enjoy a show and I have no interest in continuing, I'm going to tell you guys and I'm going to drop the show. I'm sorry, but that's how this channel works, and that's how it's going to continue to work. But again, I want to give this a chance, and I do have high hopes for every show I check out. I do want every show to be good, and I do desire the best. So hopefully I will be proven wrong, and hopefully this next episode will turn me around to this. We'll have to see. But yeah, we're gonna find out. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, that ending part, I assume, obviously, that was a flash forward to where things are going to go. That's a problem, because of where it was placed. Hear me out here. That scene should have been at the very beginning. And it should have ended with Yona, like, talking about how she got there, and then it goes back into everything that happened in these first 2 episodes. That would have made more sense, because see, that kind of scene is the kind of scene that you use in this situation, kind of a flash forward thing. For example, the very beginning of Breaking Bad showed Walter in the middle of a desert with the RV and everything looks like all kinds of bad, and you don't know what's going on. But then it flashes back to earlier in the show, earlier in his life, and everything explains how it got to that point. That is what this should have been doing. You don't show, like, stuff before that, before you do that scene. The only way to make that kind of flash forward scene work is to do it at the very beginning of the show. Or movie, in that case. In this situation, it's a show, so you would have to do that at the very beginning of the first episode of the show, and then everything would have to be built up to where it got to that point. Until it reaches that point, then it would be after that, and so yeah. Then there's also some things with that that made me question what kind of show this was. Or is, rather. Yona of the Dawn, I thought, was based on everything we saw in the first and second episodes up before that. I thought this was a historical fantasy. That was, as I mentioned at the end there, steeped in realism. That it was going to focus, like, realistic characters with realistic skills with swords or bows or whatnot, all of that jazz. And then we get some dude who can apparently fly and throws, I think, what are either daggers or something like that, in just unbelievable ways. Now, the dagger thing I wouldn't be so worried about, but the fact is he can seemingly fly, and you could say, oh, he's just jumping in the air and they make it look like he's floating there for dramatic effect. It's like, maybe, but that's not kind of what it looked like. Because he was held up there for quite a notable amount of time. But even beyond that, there was the other dude who had some kind of monster hand. And that is in no way steeped in reality. He had some kind of monster hand that he could use for some kind of big, powerful, swiping, clawing attack. And it's like, that completely turns my entire viewpoint of this show on its head. And not in a good way. Because, as I said, everything in these first 2 episodes before that kind of told us that this show was going to be steeped in reality. There was nothing nothing to hint that there was going to be any kind of like supernatural fantasy element to it, any kind of like monster kind of thing or whatnot, or any kind of like superpower kind of thing. It kind of fits into those kind of categories. There was nothing to tell us that it would go anywhere like that. And I don't like it when shows just kind of flip that realism switch with no prior, like, explanation. If you're going to have something like that in this kind of show, that's fine. But you have to introduce, like, the concept of that, the concept that that kind of thing could happen earlier on. And just like with some of the issues I had in the first episode, that one could be explained so freaking easily. Or fixed so freaking easily, rather. All you would have to do is maybe have some of the guards, like, maybe talking about this rumor they heard about some guy with this monstrous hand. This monster hand that is going around attacking people or something. That would have fixed everything. But the fact that there was no precedence for anything like that in the show up to this point, and it was clearly trying to present itself as being steeped in realism, it throws the entire thing off. As I mentioned before, a lot of the voices just still don't fit, and they're still very jarring to listen to. And as I said earlier, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you could switch to the sub, but I don't like doing that for one. I don't like starting a show with one language and then switching it, especially with reactions, and then switching it partway through. And also, I don't think I should have to do that. Like, again, the voice actors aren't bad. It's not that they're bad voice actors or even doing a bad job. It's just that they don't fit the characters. And even if the sub is better, it's like, at this point, it's like the dub is the character. It's like the dub is just, it's what I started with at this point. I'm not going to switch after 2 episodes to the sub. Plus, again, that's not really the biggest issue. With this episode, the pacing was a little better, but some of the cuts and editing and whatnot still felt a little off. The dialogue was really, really cheesy and bad, and on top of that, there were some dialogue choices that just really felt off. Like explaining who certain people were at the most inopportune and realistic and just completely weird times. And also, the Suan. I kind of mentioned this while reacting. Suan's character did almost a complete 180 during the course of this episode. And during the first episode that happened, but that was good. That was fine for the first episode. But the way it happened in the second episode was so poorly done. Because 1 second he's talking to Yona in almost a sympathetic way. He's trying to convince her, like, oh, it's like your father wasn't as good as he pretended to be. That he killed my father, his own brother, in cold blood. Blah, blah, blah. After already kind of taking the throne from him and stuff like that. And that's all like one thing. But the way he's saying it, the way he's talking to Yona, and clearly the words he's using tell us that he has nothing against her. That he almost even seems to still want her on his side, the way he's trying to sympathize, or get her to sympathize with him. He seems to almost still want her on his side. And then this other dude comes in, and she runs away, and they're like going after her to kill her. He says nothing. And then when they're about to kill her, he's letting it happen, and he does like this 180 again, like going from almost like this sympathetic villain to just a psychotic murderer who doesn't even care. Who's just like evil for the sake of evil. And he goes from, like, again, seeming to want Yona to join his side and see his point of view, to just wanting to kill her. And being okay with his subordinates killing her when he clearly did not want that before. He told them to capture her. Which does not mean kill her. I'm sorry, but that is really off in terms of the writing. Um, and then there's the issue I had with last episode where it's like, oh, Hawk just kind of appeared there, and this episode didn't fix that. Yes, it kind of explained how he got there and what he was doing beforehand, but in that case, the pacing was so off in the last episode, and scenes were actually out of order then. Because as we see in this episode, right before he encountered her and what was happening, he was searching around. He was suspicious at that point. But we saw that happen before he was enjoying the tea with the other dude who ended up sacrificing himself in this episode. So, which means that the parts in episode 1 were out of order, which makes it even more just off-putting and confusing. And it didn't fix the issue I had with episode 1. This episode, at the same time, felt really cliche. Like the entire thing about us, everything about it just felt like, it's like, oh, we're going to do the most obvious things. Oh, we're being chased by these dudes who want to kill us, who have just taken over the kingdom. We're going to hide. One of us is going to plan a diversion so we can sneak away and get out of there and go off on our own to where the enemies can't track us. Everything about it is so exceptionally cliche, you know? It's like you've seen this kind of thing done so many times before, and honestly better. Nothing about this just really strikes me as that great. This is a pretty acclaimed series, too. Like, I've heard, pretty much since this series first came out, all kinds of people talking about it and talking it up and saying how amazing it is. I don't see it. And the thing is, some people might say, oh, but you have to wait more episodes in. You can't just judge it on the first couple episodes. Yes, you can. Digibro has perfectly explained why you can judge any show or anime or whatnot on the first couple episodes. You can tell where a show is heading by where it starts, believe it or not. There are some exceptions to that, of course. There are always exceptions to every rule. But that is the rule. It's not an exception. It is the rule, and that's how it goes most of the time. The point I'm trying to make here is that this series is not capturing my interest. While, like I said during this reaction, I do like some of the characterizations for these characters, and I don't think it's like void of possibility, and it's just doing so many things wrong, or at least so many things that I find wrong, that I just don't like. And on top of it, it does have one huge disadvantage as well, which honestly I knew about going into it from the very beginning. It's historical style fantasy. I don't like historical style fantasy. I prefer high fantasy. I prefer stuff like, when I like fantasy, I prefer stuff like Lord of the Rings or the Elder Scrolls in terms of video games. Stuff like that is the kind of fantasy I like. More of this historical political fantasy does not interest me. It's one of the big reasons why I dropped Arslan Senki, because I just could not get into it that much, and definitely not enough to continue wanting to watch it. It seems like it's very much the same kind of series as Arslan Senki, which I think I've heard the comparison to those talked about before. But that's kind of the thing here. What I'm saying with this, obviously, at this point, you can tell, I can't get into this. The characters, I can't really get in. The only one I really like at this moment is Hawk. Like, he's really the only one I really like. Yona is flip-floppity with her personality. And it's just, at this point, it's just like, I don't really have any real strong feelings one way or the other for her, because there's not really been any chance to find any of those strong feelings. Suwon just changes his personality at the drop of a hat, so yeah. And none of the other characters really stand out at all to me. The story, again, is just kind of cliche and doesn't really stand out as anything special or anything new. The pacing and the way certain scenes are set up, the way things are organized around, make no sense to me. Like, again, some of this stuff just makes absolutely zero sense to me on the way it's organized, the way it's the scenes are ordered around, the way everything is just handled. The voice actors, while all very good and doing good jobs at actually voice acting, they don't, for a lot of them, don't fit the characters. They just don't fit the characters' appearances or personalities, or they just don't seem right coming out of, like, it doesn't seem like they're believable. Like, okay, here's the best way to put it. They don't seem genuine. Hearing those voices come out of those characters does not seem genuine. It does not seem, like, believable. It sounds like voice actors voicing a character. Good voice actors, mind you, but it sounds like voice actors. Because you cannot connect those voices with those characters. At least I can't. And again, it's just like I said, it'd be like Chris Sabat voicing Edward Elric from Full Metal Alchemist. It would not work. It's just, the voices and the characters do not mesh together. In my opinion, of course. The soundtrack is just kind of blah. It's not good, but it's not bad either. It's just kind of blah. It's just there. Really, that's kind of how I view this series. It's kind of blah. It's by the numbers, very cliche, doesn't do anything that makes it stand out. And then when it tries to, at the end there, it just feels so out of place and so poorly, just thrown in for the hell of it. That it doesn't seem to fit with the entire rest of the series up to that point. I'm sorry that I seem like that I'm just, like, trying to find things to hate. I'm really not. Like, when I went into the first episode and now going into the second, I'm not trying to find things to hate about this. I'm trying actively to find things to like. But I'm coming up short. There's very little about this series that I enjoy. And just that in and of itself, my enjoyment watching this is almost non-existent. A lot of the time when watching this episode, I just felt like, when is this going to end? Like, why does this feel like it's so slow? And that's how things tend to go when you're not enjoying them. You've heard the phrase, obviously, that time flies when you're having fun, and that's true. And not really, obviously, the time doesn't actually go faster, but it feels like it does. Because you're losing track of the time, because you're just losing yourself in what you're watching or doing or whatnot. And it goes for the opposite as well, though. When you're not enjoying something, whether playing a game or watching an anime or whatever, it seems to go by slower. It feels like it's like taking up a lot more time than it actually is, because you're not enjoying it. And that's what this series has been feeling like for me, especially in this episode. I felt like it was just taking forever, and I felt like a lot of it just felt unnecessary. A lot of it felt like it was just really, like, chalked in just to throw in this random shit just to make it reach the time. It just did not work for me. I know this is a popular series, but it's not one that interests me or makes me want to watch it again, or any further, rather. So I do apologize, Matthew Vasquez. And I know there were a couple other of you who were excited that I was reacting to this. I remember there was someone who mentioned in the comments that they were excited that someone was reacting to Yona of the Dawn. Um, because apparently no one reacts to this. And I do apologize to all of you who were excited for this reaction series, but I can't do this. This series just has like almost no interest to me in the first place because of just how it's set up as a historical political fantasy. But then even beyond that, it's just doing everything in its power to make a show that I personally don't like. It seems like everything it's doing is like going against thing. It's like everything it's doing is stuff I don't like and I don't want it to do. You know. So I do apologize, but this unfortunately does have to mark the end of Yona of the Dawn reactions. I am dropping it. I really hate saying that, you know? I just hate saying that with any series. I don't like dropping shows. I despise dropping shows. Because what it means when I drop a show is that it wasn't good for me. That I didn't enjoy it. That I didn't like it, and that I hate not liking a show. So I'm not just like rushing into that. I'm pretty sure whenever I say that, whenever I say I'm dropping a show, I try to make sure that I am absolutely certain about meaning it. And heck, even when I dropped Adventure Time before, after watching the first few episodes, when I dropped it the first time, I meant it, and I really did. Yes, I ended up picking it back up and ended up liking it later on, but I still stand by that those first few episodes were terrible. And this show, unlike Adventure Time, isn't one that really leads to like giving another chance or checking out again. It's not the same. It's not the right kind of show for that. So I do apologize. I apologize first and foremost to you, Matthew, because you were the one who suggested this. But it's not my kind of show. It just isn't right off the bat, and then beyond that, it's just like everything it's doing is like things I don't like and I don't want to see. So I do apologize. That's what I'm trying to say here. But that means we do have to move on to a new show for the Friday slot. Seems like we've been just pushing past a lot of stuff lately with that. We've been like, I don't know, it's just like, I don't remember what we were doing on Friday. Oh, Ancient Magus, that's right. We dropped Ancient Magus because I felt like that would be better on my own. See, with that's a different story because I just felt like that would be better to watch on my own time. I still like Ancient Magus. It's a phenomenal show. This is a different reason for dropping this. See, with this one, I don't like it. So, yeah, it's a different reason, but yeah, I know. I just dropped 2 shows in a matter of 3 weeks. So I do apologize for that. But now we get into the voting for next time. So I will be posting another video that will be for the poll for the next Friday slot reaction, and almost all of these shows on the poll are almost guaranteed to be something I like, with the exception of 2. So the poll will include Kimi no Todake, which I had previewed in the past. It's the show about the socially awkward girl who kind of has like this scary look to her, and everyone always like believes her to be like scary and everything. I thought she was adorable as hell. Yeah, that one is on the list. I really do want to watch that, so that's there, Kimi no Todake. Number 2 is Hoseki no Kuni. I forgot the English title for that one. But that's like, it's something, it's been compared to Steven Universe. It's like about like these humanoid gems. And that automatically captures my interest. The third anime on the list is Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water. This one has actually been suggested to me, I think, by Cartoon Lounge. Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water. It's actually a collaboration between a couple of other people that I know. Give me a second. I want to make sure I get these names and everything right, just to make sure I'm, like, you know, right on it. Because this one is one that has, again, been suggested to me. Yes. It is created from a concept by Hayao Miyazaki of Studio Ghibli fame, as well as it's directed by the famed director Hideaki Anno. Hideaki Anno has done so many amazing things. Some things I don't admittedly like, to be fair, like Neon Genesis Evangelion is probably the biggest thing he's known for. But he's done other things too. He's a huge name. Huge name. Let's see some of the other stuff he's directed. Kari Kano, that's a pretty well-known one. Cutie Honey is pretty well-known. Apparently he directed the live-action movie Shin Godzilla. So that's something to note. I haven't seen that yet, but I've been wanting to. He's storyboarded on a bunch of stuff. He's actually acted in a few things. He was in Fooly Cooly, apparently. He was in The Wind Rock. Hideaki Anno was the main character in The Wind Rises, the Studio Ghibli film. That's fantastic, actually. And now I watched the dub for the Studio Ghibli films, but still. He animated in Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and Grave of the Fireflies, and so many other things. The point is, he's a famed director, screenwriter, actor, all of this stuff. And now, again, a lot of the stuff he's done and known for, I either don't know or just don't like. So I'm not the best person to, like, hype him up. But again, Hayao Miyazaki was involved in this. Now, very minorly, like, the series was created from a concept that Hayao Miyazaki created. Hayao Miyazaki, I don't think, actually was straight up, like, involved in the making of it. It's by Studio Gainax, who I kind of have a very turbulent viewpoint on. I'm not the hugest fan of Gainax. But Gainax has done some good things for sure. But yeah, so that's next one on the list. Either way, so far we got Kimi no Todeke, Hoseki no Kuni, Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water. The fourth option is K-On! Season 2. That's an interesting one, huh? K-On! Season 2 from Kyo Annie. I have seen the first season of K-On! It's been quite a while, but I have seen it. And I enjoyed it to a point. It wasn't like anything phenomenal to me. Like, I'm not like Digibro, who considers it his favorite anime of all time. But I admit it's well made, and it's cute, and it's nice, and I like the characters, especially Mugi. Mugi is best girl. And I've always wanted to check out Season 2, I just never got around to it. It's actually been a couple years now since I watched Season 1, too. So K-On! Season 2 is on the list. And the fifth and final one on the Friday anime list for the poll is Inuyashiki. Inuyashiki is a newer anime compared to the rest on this list. Although I think Hoseki no Kuni is newer too. But Inuyashiki, I do know a little bit about. I am not completely blind on that one. I know it has something to do with this old man who apparently becomes this, like, super-powered robot and has to fight bad guys. The concept of that alone is hilarious to me. And I've seen a couple of clips. I have. And it looks like it's a fun time. When it was airing, I just never really thought about it. I just never really gave it a shot. But that is on the list. So, once again, the full poll list, which will be in another video, like the poll will be another video for you to check out, The full list is Kimi no Todeke, Hoseki no Kuni, Nadia the Secret of Blue Water, K-On! Season 2, and Inuyashiki. So look for the poll video to be coming sometime. Also, sorry for this outro part. These my afterthoughts being so fucking long. I'm gonna see if I can maybe edit it down a little bit. But yeah, so that's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna be on the next poll. I hope you check that out, and I hope you vote. I'm gonna be advertising the poll on social media and stuff as well. In the meantime, I do apologize once more for dropping another show. And I apologize to Matthew, who suggested it and everything. It just doesn't seem like it's my kind of thing. On every level, I'm just not really enjoying it, to be honest. So, I do apologize, but I've got to drop it. So in the meantime, thank you all so much for understanding, and thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for